It doesn't matter if you're standing around the water cooler, sitting around a campfire, or trapped in a jury box. A mediocre story told by someone who's a good storyteller is better than a great story told poorly. Giving words meaning, bringing the listener in, making them part of an experience, it's an art. And it's an art that all lawyers practice daily, some better than others. Since the beginning of civilization, people have used storytelling as a way of conveying knowledge, passing down information, sharing history, legends. And let's be real, some of these stories aren't as thrilling as others. Keeping people interested in 7 generations of who married who, and how many kids they had, and who they married is no small feat. Unless it's the Kardashians. Having a feel for your audience, crafting a storyline from data and facts that immerses them in the dialogue, grabs a hold of them, entertains them. This is the difference between dumping some information on someone and letting them sort it out, or controlling the narrative and guiding them to a solid conclusion. That's what we're talking about today on Lawsome, the craft of storytelling and how it can be a secret weapon for lawyers. Let's go.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that always makes it a point to say hi to your parents. We're here to inform, educate, and entertain the legal community on the latest in personal and professional developments. I'm Jake Sanders, the chaperone for this shindig. And with me, as always, is our dance instructor, Paul Julius. Paul, what's shaking besides our tail feathers?
I don't know, man, but you gotta go put some space between those kids, man. This is getting a little bit more intimate than I'm comfortable with.
We have to save room for the Holy Ghost.
That's right. You know how it is. Somebody test that punch.
So before we get on the bus, the show bus, tell us where we're headed.
On the show today, we're driving towards talking about incorporating storytelling. An article from lawfuel.com. We interview Adrienne Samuel, talk about the craft of storytelling as it relates to lawyers. And as always, we bring the heat with 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The article today is from lawfuel.com. It's by Adrienne Lerson, and he's going to teach you a lesson. So why don't you lerson up?
This show's all about Adrienne's.
It is weird. We brought a lot of Adrienne. Is that from a movie?
I don't know.
Okay, anyway. It could be. There's people named Adrienne in a movie. We can't lose our flow right now.
No.
The article is 3 surefire ways lawyers can use storytelling to create greater impact with legal content. The 3 steps he has: know your audience, build a robust data set of your audience's pain points and concerns, and understand where they're coming from. 2, make people your subject, not the law. Don't write about the law, write about how the law impacts the people you serve. And the 3rd tip was identify your characters. When you name certain people, it gives them, and identify characters. It creates tangible interest in the writing. So this was great, man. What did you think about this, Paul?
So I love articles like this because it actually has pointers that you can actually do.
Totally.
It gives you easy to understand direction. I mean, I really like the part where it says when you address a specific audience, you have, here's 3 steps within 3 steps, like a sub list, if you will. But it says, here's what happened, here's why it matters, here's what you should do next, and that's something that you can really take any data that you're trying to convey, any points that you're trying to get across to somebody, and make sure that you're answering those questions. I mean, that's like at its most fundamental. If you're trying to make a point and draw people in, I really, really love those 3 tips. What'd you think?
Well, yeah. The Yahoo. He was Adrienne Lerson was the senior managing editor at Yahoo for 5 years. So this is tips coming from like an editor that relates to the legal field. And really, lawyers are the best paid writers in the world. Some of the best paid writers in the world. There's a lot to take away in the interview with our other Adrienne Samuel. He unpacks it because he worked as a civil litigator in the UK for 26 years, pushing the legal boulder up a hill, then he learned about storytelling and how he could turn it around and help lawyers kind of differentiate in crowded marketplaces. And it's got these same kind of tips, and he has that refreshing take on it that is just as accessible and tasty. So I think we should just do it. We should just go.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
Stay tuned for more goodness from Lawsome. After this message.
We're getting updates on that developing story where a local law firm was buried in leads from the internet. We go now to our own Stacey Williams, who's live with the details.
Chaos. The scene here outside a prominent law firm where just hours ago, a digital marketing campaign from ConsultWebs went live, burying the entire building in clicks, calls, and leads. A few paralegals managed to get out, but some of the staff are still stuck inside trying to sign all of the cases coming in.
I mean, it seemed like right after the first call came in, we couldn't keep up. Qualified lead after lead came in. We were ranking higher than ever on Google by 10 in the morning. The likes on our Facebook page exploded by noon. My mom, my own mother, called the firm asking about a blog we wrote last week about handling insurance adjusters. And that's when the chats came in. The chats.
It wasn't until I tried to head out for lunch that I noticed the leads were starting to come into the windows on the second level. Our receptionist started to tie together extension cords to create a rope to lower herself to safety. But I guess that's when the banner ads went live, and I blacked out.
Oh, wow. So it appears that the leads are lightening up a bit. Here comes more of the staff making their way out from under the heavy curtain of leads. Sir, can you tell us what happened? Should lawyers hire ConsultWebs for their digital marketing agency?
Look, I'll just say this. We were not ready for the leads to come in so heavy and consistently. If you're marketing your law firm online, call ConsultWebs, but just be prepared for it to go better than expected.
Go to www.consultwebs.com to learn more.
And now, for a Lawsome interview.
After practicing civil litigation in the United Kingdom for 26 years, Adrienne Samuel brings his unique vantage point on legal practice to his legal brand consultancy, Storytelling for Lawyers. Adrienne works with law firms in crowded marketplaces to develop story-driven brands that differentiate from the competitors and helps lawyers discover the secret weapon of stories. We're honored to have Adrienne on the show to talk about storytelling for lawyers. So, Adrienne, I think, according to storytelling rules, this should start as "It was a dark or stormy night" or "Once upon a time," and that's storytelling, right?
Yeah, it is. I think. Hello there. I think "Once upon a time" is better. It's calmer. It's easier to accept. It doesn't sound too scary, does it?
Right. We're off to a pretty crazy start if it's dark and stormy. Good point. So let's talk about your roots as a lawyer originally, and then how you focused in on the craft of storytelling as a way to enhance your practice. How does the work lawyers do contain elements of storytelling, and just kind of break apart that the connection in between you and the practice of storytelling?
Yeah, of course. I did pretty poorly at school, actually, because I had tonsillitis and glandular fever and all sorts of horrible things that kept me off school for a long time. So I didn't do terribly well at school. Went off to college, did a business diploma, and from that got a kind of taste for law. It was never in my family. It was never kind of on my radar. And so I sort of followed a career into law, but without going to university. So training as a legal executive in the UK, which was like a lower grade lawyer. And it meant that I had to work incredibly hard to qualify as a solicitor. It took me 10 years to qualify as a solicitor. So it was a really, really long route. And I kind of made my way up through the profession by, really hard work at working on the job, studying 12 hours a week at home and, doing that. So found my way into a very nice traditional law firm in the UK, which had a bolt-on personal injury practice. We did a lot of ambulance chasing, clinical negligence, that kind of stuff. But we had a team of 10 doing that. And great lean years, really, really happy time doing systems and so on. Then the partnership fell apart and I left the profession feeling a bit disillusioned. My dad who'd been in sales said, as you've done a kind of customer facing sort of job, why don't you look at doing something in sales? And I thought this was like a crazy idea, an absolutely crazy idea. So it seems so removed from what I've been doing. But actually, I found a sales company selling a niche home improvement brand in the UK. And I started doing that work, and it was a massive eye-opener for me. Having gone from a kind of protective profession where you were jolly, clients were jolly lucky to walk through your door, which was how the legal profession used to kind of view itself, into a profession where you actually had to knock on someone's door, speak to them, and then in due course, speak to them in more detail, present your product, and actually get a deal. It was kind of like a complete reversal of what I've been used to. Sales was massively interesting for me. I did really, really well at it. And I don't know whether that was because I just had the gift of the gab or whether it was because people trusted me. I'd like to think it was the latter. And a lot of this was to do with building rapport with people, talking to them, and just engaging on kind of personal stuff, nothing to do with what I was trying to sell. And it was a really interesting process because you'd find your way into someone's house, you'd talk about the kids, the lawn, where they were going on holiday. And then as part of that kind of natural discussion process, you ended up making a sale. When I sort of came out of the kind of strict selling practice, I thought, how can I turn this from just selling what I was selling at that time into selling something that I kind of know about? So I thought, well, I know about law firms, and they are, to be brutally honest, terribly, terribly bad at selling. They don't see themselves as salespeople. They hate that kind of label. And so that's kind of how I went into that. And then I developed my own practice, read a lot, great guys, Seth Godin, of course, Daniel Pink, all the amazing people who give us great stuff on how to sell. But that whole idea of just engaging with people, connecting with, empathy, and all those kind of things that are so human and so far removed from what most lawyers are doing. So what I try to do is to encourage lawyers to look at their humanity, that what they're doing is a human to human connection, that it's kind of the emotional glue that sticks things together. And, instead of giving a list of stuff that you do, try and give of yourselves, your personality, to engage people so that they can understand that you understand them.
In regards to storytelling as a craft, it seems like the elements are already there for trial lawyers, people who are in there trying to convince somebody in a jury box of something. Maybe lawyers, there's this secret realization that they are storytellers, but they don't quite want to fully embrace it because language needs to have half measures. When you ask a lawyer a question, the answer is depends. And it doesn't matter what the question was, because they need to get on the fence and understand what's going on. So in regards to sales and marketing, this is the best mop ever. Like a lawyer wouldn't feel comfortable saying that. And in some regards, there are ethical considerations. But in regards to lawyers, like specifically, how does storytelling help them differentiate themselves?
Well, I think that you're absolutely right. I mean, storytelling is kind of in lawyers' blood. If you're a trial lawyer, then, that's a story. But kind of anything that you do as a lawyer, there's a story behind it. Someone is coming into your office, and whether they're, looking to set up a company, or if they're buying and selling property, or if it's litigation, then there's a story attached to that, a why. And trying to find that the why your client wants to do what they want to do, and trying to find some connection to the why you do what you do as a lawyer, rather than just saying, I do conveyancing or I do litigation. Why did I do litigation? Well, there were very good reasons for that. And explaining those reasons is the story. And I think that lawyers, apart from medical professionals, I think lawyers are probably the professionals who have the most fortune, really, to have the most intimate, personal, human-to-human connection. I don't think there's another profession. So, someone will come in and sit the other side of your desk, and they will spill the beans. They'll spill their heart out. They'll cry, and you need to give them a box of tissues. That's a big emotional event for the client. And lawyers, I think, are very fortunate to be involved in that process. It's an extremely intimate and human thing. But I think the point about differentiation, which you've asked about, right. I think that the trouble is that everything is extremely crowded. It's a very, very crowded marketplace. I mean, I don't know what it's like in the States, but in the UK, if you chuck a stone, in the street, you're going to hit a lawyer. In the old days, there was one lawyer in a town, one lawyer in a village, and that lawyer had knowledge. Nobody else had the knowledge that lawyer had. But now, knowledge is everywhere. It's available to everyone. It's available on their tablets, on their laptops, whatever. That's knowledge, and that's available to absolutely everyone, all the lawyers in your town, and it's available to your client as well. So when a client comes to a lawyer and they sit down in front of that lawyer, what is that lawyer going to be able to do or say for them that is going to be different from what the lawyer down the street will be doing or saying? Because the knowledge parameters are exactly the same. So what is it that will enable that client to choose that particular lawyer above everybody else? It seems to me that that's about the humanness, the value that you add, the connection that you make with that client on a personal level, in understanding what it is that they know, what it is they do, their why they've come to you, and how your why in being a lawyer matches or corresponds. It might even conflict, but nevertheless, if there's story there, then there is going to be some kind of connection. And it's about finding service for the clients, not clients for the service. A lot of firms are very keen on saying, we do this, we do this, we do this. And we see the list on their websites. All the websites are the same, by the way. If a lawyer can say, I actually go boxing at the weekends, and here's a picture of me standing here in my shorts with my boxing gloves on, a client seeing that is going to feel some kind of personal connection there. They might not like boxing, but at least they can see the humanity in the person that they might be dealing with. And I think that kind of personal visualization of what the lawyer is, instead of sitting in an ivory tower, they're actually a person. And lawyers are dealing with people. Everybody has families, they have lives, they have interests outside of what they've come to see you about. And I think making those connections increases the value that you can actually add.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of lawyers miss about social media, is that there's a kind of a place where you can go into that other side of things. And you don't have to be, crazy putting on a rainbow wig or whatever, but, do you have pets? What's your hobby? Do you like riding a bike? I mean, those are really great ways where someone's like, hey, I can relate to that. Mm-hmm. There's somebody who we already kind of connect on some level.
And that's emotional, you see, isn't it?
Yep.
Because,
yeah.
We buy from people that we trust. And if we can see elements of those, the personality of the person we're speaking to, then the trust will be built. The example I always give is when you walk into a shop and you're looking for a pair of jeans, and the sales assistant comes over and says, can I help you? And of course, the immediate reaction is, no, I'm just looking. We don't want to be sold to. We want to make our own decision about buying. And we make a decision about buying in that store or from that person based on how we feel. So if we're going to be made to feel sort of threatened or uncomfortable, we're going to be resistant to buying. And I think it's exactly the same in the legal profession. If you can say something other than, come and buy us, you're going to make a connection. The sales assistant in the shop comes over and says, I like your shoes. There's going to be a conversation associated with that. It's not going to be threatening. And through the conversation about the shoes, you build trust. From that, the sales assistant then says, you were looking at our jeans. What size would you like to try on? That's an easy conversation to have. And I think for lawyers, it's exactly the same. Don't buy us, but come and talk to us, because we are people just like you.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really great example.
Love that.
Doing some research for this episode, something I came across particularly in some of the more historical aspects, the traditional storyteller's role was conveying the village's history. And that's hard. Being a good storyteller, taking bland, mundane facts and making it interesting is relatable.
and relatable is tough. So, I'm curious if you could kind of walk us through a typical meeting with a client. Like, how do you help them unfold those stories? There has to be boring people. Is it about telling it like it is, or how it should be?
Are there any boring people?
You haven't met, met Karen over here. No, no offense, Karen.
That was a rhetorical question.
Sorry, I walked right into it.
But everybody is different. I mean, law firms are made up of a wide range of kind of weirdos, just like everywhere else.
Well said. Safely put.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you've got the backroom lawyers who don't want to do any networking. They don't want to have anything to do with people. They just happily sit there and draft stuff. And then there are the people out front, the receptionists, who haven't got a clue about what goes on in law firms. They're just there to welcome people in and be nice to them. What I like in encouraging firms to embrace is not so much leadership in law firms as this thing called followership. And I don't know if you've come across that phrase or if it is even a word. But the idea that you find a direction for your firm as a whole that everyone can follow. And that means not a leader in a firm saying, do this, do that, go here, do that. This is how you need to engage with people. But trying to get the firm to understand what the why of the firm is, why they're there. Why do you come to work every day? What's the important thing? In law firms, the important thing is moving your client from a point of pain or difficulty to a point of solution, and getting them to a place where they can be a good deal happier about their lives than they were when they first walked through the door. And I think if you can engage everybody in that process, then that is absolutely crucial. So I try to encourage firms to do that. Firms are all very, very different, of course. And, very often we have to look at what they've done, what they actually do, what they want to happen, what they've done in the past, what's gone wrong. What are the difficulties they have in the personalities? What do their team say? How do they cuddle their customers? What are the egos like? Very big egos, lots of law firms. Do we need to cut that down? Do we need to look at how that's working for the why of the firm? So obviously, and a lot of people will say this in the service sector, it's about listening more than talking to start with. But having done that, it's then a case of going through a process to maximize perhaps networking opportunities, to maximize recommendations or referrals to the firm. How are they actually going to do that? I like also engaging with firms using slides. I think that words are very difficult for some people to grasp. And I think if you can speak to people in visuals, in that kind of way, I think it attaches and connects with them in a much easier way. So I like to use visuals by way of explaining what the journey is going to be to try and change perhaps the culture of the firm, the direction of the firm, or the attitudes and behaviours of the firm. So I like very much to use that. I also like to keep things as simple as I can. And I think my contract is 15 lines of text. I mean, it's extremely straightforward, and it says, I'll do this, you do this, and then we'll actually make some decent art together. So I like to keep things really, really simple with firms.
One quick question, really fast.
Yeah.
Just to say that the ivory tower and complicated language and legalese, and like a lot of lawyers feel that they've traveled the world and fought the battles of law school, and now they're indebted. They probably have, a lot of student loans to pay off. So as they're scrapping around, for some kind of foothold, I think that a lot of people feel like I shouldn't have to dumb this down. I am paid to be complicated. I am paid to be from the ivory tower. So if I show a picture of me in my boxing gloves, I'm actually losing a lot of the poker face that I need to have in order to, I'm not sure. I mean, I understand where they're coming from. And then I also am feeling like that it feels like I'm giving up a defense. If I have to make everything simple, I have to use slides now. You people can't read. we're in a law firm, and I just think that there might be some animosity towards some people who say, I scrapped and scraped to get this degree, and I'm not going to treat it like some advertising campaign. Like, this is highbrow stuff.
Yeah.
How do you you got to sweep the legs out of that one, Adrienne?
That's absolutely fine. And that is a very, very typical position for lawyers to take. Why wouldn't they? They are, quotes, professionals, close quotes. And then they look at the word professional and then they put it against something that might look a bit amateurish. And they do get a bit confused about that. What they're concerned about in reality, of course, is what everybody else is going to think about that. Because let's be honest, what we do in selling is not about us. And this is where lawyers trip themselves up. Because if they put and that's about ego as much as anything, if they put their ego to one side, they'd be able to see what their clients need. What do their clients need to be told? And the question then is, are you telling them that? Or are you telling them what you want to tell them? And that for me is really the argument to be had there. If you want to continue doing that, stick yourself in an ivory tower, keep yourself ring-fenced from your clients. You are not going to have a firm in a few years' time. So step outside of your comfort zone, because that's what it is. There's a great word, you know it, kakaraphiaphobia. Isn't it great? I did a blog post on it. It's the persistent fear of failure. And this is the problem that a lot of professionals face, because they're worried about what their peers think. They're worried about what the other firms in the town think. They're worried about what their professional organisation will think. My view is, who gives a stuff? At the end of the day, what matters is service for your clients, and for your clients to recognise that the service you give is a service that is different from your neighbour. And if they walk through your door instead of your neighbour's door, and more important than that, they come back for the next bit of business, because what you've done, you've inspired them rather than simply motivated them to one transaction. You've actually inspired them as a firm or as an individual. And then there's returning clients, and we all know that returning clients are cheaper to get than clients who you have to find straight off the street. Once you've got your client, keep your client. And if you can keep your client by inspiring them rather than just motivating them to one transaction, then this has to be a plus, doesn't it?
You're so brilliant, Adrienne. Man, thank you so much for answering that question. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to get your perspective on. So how can people learn more about you? How can they connect with you?
Probably the easiest way for most people on a worldwide basis really is LinkedIn. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, engagements all day, every day, really. So that's a very good storytelling for lawyers is my sort of tag there. But you'll find me if you look me up, Adrienne Samuel. aps.legal is my website, and my email address is storytelling@consultant.com, and I'd be happy to hear from anyone. And not only can you help us, but if anybody just wants a few more pointers, happy to give it. It's not a problem, because part of my quest really is to get lawyers to change, and if I can get a couple of lawyers to change, that's fantastic.
Five questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
I've got 3 on the go at the moment. The last book I completed was Jimi Hendrix, Starting at Zero.
All right. You're like my favorite person now.
Yeah, now, totally.
Fantastic book. If you don't know it, you need to get it. It's by a guy called Peter Neal, Neal, and it's a fascinating book because it's Jimi Hendrix words, diaries, stuff, all kind of cajoled together into a book, a paperback book. Very easy reading, but it's almost like you can hear him speaking. It's not really an editorial job at all. It's just a cut and paste job with all Jimi Hendrix's own stuff. So it's as if he's written the book himself. And I didn't know much about him. I grew up in the 70s. I kind of missed the end of the 60s because I was a bit too young in those days. But what a fascinating, incredible artist. Amazing book.
Excellent.
Awesome.
I'm down. I'm going to read it.
And if on a side note, sorry, I'm rambling now. Eddie Kramer, his producer, has some stuff out on YouTube talking about like mixing him at Electric Ladyland.
Yeah, I've
It's
seen that.
unreal.
So
he like
cool.
breaks down the process and everything. It's oh god, it's incredible. I love Jimmy. Anyway, sorry. Yeah, next on the next episode of Awesome, we talk about Jimi Hendrix. All right. Yeah. All right. Number 2. What's your favorite place?
My favourite place is Sussex in the UK. And I know that's a county, East Sussex in particular. Why do I love it? I grew up there. It's just the smells and the sights and the sound and the hills. It's got sea, it's got countryside. It's just beautiful. A lot of people go to the UK and they go to London. Forget it. Go south. Go to East Sussex. It's just amazing.
I love it. Okay. Number 3. What sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
Seth Godin.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yep.
His stuff is just gold.
Totally. Okay, number 4. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
Black pepper.
Hell yeah. Good answer. Okay, we made it to the end here. Number 5, after a long day or a long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
Music generally. I play a trombone. I played trombone when I was a kid, and I played for about 15 years, really, really well. I learnt treble clef and sold my trombone to buy a car. I bought a new trombone about a year ago, and I'm learning bass clef. But now I'm 54 years of age. It's really, really hard to learn a new trick. But I'm also a singer. I'm a tenor, so I do a lot of musical theatre and singing like that. So I like to recreationally do music in those two forms. So singing and trombone playing.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonpodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.
You're still here? Don't you have stuff to do? Get out of here.